Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin. Please ignore the fact I'm double glassing it right now. I wanted to have some kind of futuristic looking thing going on with my outfit because we're talking about sci-fi today. However, I don't own any futuristic clothes, and also I am currently too exhausted to even attempt to try and piece together an outfit. Today, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite topics ever, shows that no one has seen or heard of or cares about. The focus of today's video is going to be DisneyXD's Forgotten Original Series, which was like Power Rangers meets Transformers meets Jurassic World. It's called Mech-X4. Now this show, at least its first season, is like an absolute nightmare. It's a fever dream. However, it did have this chokehold on me when it came out. I had a Kindle Fire at the time, and the Kindle Fire came with the first two episodes for free. So I would just watch those episodes over and over and over again. I finished the show on YouTube. I have complicated emotions when it comes to this show. And so I felt like, why make this a me problem when it can be an us problem? But what the hell is Mech-X4? And I am so glad you didn't ask. What if we made a show about 4 kids and a robot? The show. Mech-X4 is a 2016 Canadian-produced DisneyXD original show that lasted for 2 seasons. The show was created by Steve Marmel, who worked on Sunny with the Chance and Danny Phantom, and I found an old interview from a blog that kind of talks about the show's creation. I don't know if I can find this blog again. I forgot to save it. Basically, Steve over here was like, yo, I want to make a TV show about 4 kids and a giant fighting robot. And DisneyXD was like, you know what, bro? Sounds like a good idea. And they gave it the budget to be exactly what Steve wanted it to be, which was a single camera, special effects filled, developing narrative, binge-able action TV show for kids. According to the interview I found, the production team was a regular group of nostalgia junkies. And if you've watched the show, you can definitely tell that. They specifically cite properties like Goonies, E.T., Transformers, Godzilla, comic books in general as inspirations for when they were creating this show. The show follows Orion Walker, played by Nathaniel Potvin,
who I definitely did have a crush on, and was the main reason I kept watching this show.
Over the summer before high school, Ryan discovers that he's a technopath, meaning that he can control technology. He shares the secret with his best friends, Harris, played by Cameron Lucas, and Spider, played by Pierce Joseph. When they attempt to use it to embarrass Ryan's extremely popular and, to be quite frank, egomaniac older brother Mark, played by Ray Cham, it backfires due to a vision that distracts Ryan.
Ferry, a huge abandoned ferry. Like this? Yeah.
At the ferry, they're stepped on by a giant robot in one of the coolest shots in the entire series. And it's revealed that a guy named Leo built the robot specifically for a technopath because there's a terrible threat to Bay City. But oh no, the video gets messed up even though the entire robot's intact. The boys decide to use Mech-X4 to get back at Mark for pranking them, only it backfires once again because Mark's popularity is completely destroyed. And he apologizes to Ryan for being a jerk. But we don't have to dwell on that for very long because a monster starts terrorizing the school, and the gang hops into Mech-X4 to protect everyone. The only problem is nobody knows how to do anything when it comes to controlling the robot, and Ryan ends up getting hurt because he's bonded to the robot. Now Harris, who's the smart one, realizes they need a mechanic, and conveniently, Mark happens to be a good mechanic. Mark figures out that they're the ones who destroyed his street cred, but he doesn't really have time to get mad at Ryan because he is getting his ass handed to him by not Godzilla. Despite the rough patch at the beginning, they're able to bring it back and defeat the monster that's definitely not Godzilla. Afterwards, it's revealed that the monster was actually sent by
The next monster I make will tear that robot apart.
the principal. That's not stupid, cliche, or incredibly predictable. Trust me, I don't have a problem with the fact that the principal is the villain. I have a problem with the fact that they revealed it in the first episode. Now, there are 16 episodes in the first season, and all of them progress the main plot of the show. So rather than give like a detailed play-by-play of each episode, like I did with the plot, we're kind of just going to be covering the first arc of the show, and then the good qualities of the show as a whole, followed by the second arc of the show, and like all of the bad qualities of the show. Now, starting with episode 2, which is called, let's call it Mech-X4 Part 2, Bay City's Fox News equivalent, I'm guessing, instills fear of the robot into the community. To combat this, Ryan makes everyone go out and they help people around the city. As part of this little campaign, they save a man falling off of a roof.
It's a beautiful man. Put him down easy. I know. Hold on.
This building that they're at belongs to Seth Harper, founder of Harper Futuristics, which is the big tech company. I guess it's like the Apple equivalent, I would say. Because they saved that guy, Seth Harper, CEO of Harper Futuristics, all that, invites them to a special place to talk about who they are. While everyone else goes to the meetup, Harris continues to search for answers as to who the man who made Mech-X4 is. Harris discovers that the man's name is Leo, and that he knew who Ryan was, and he specifically warned them not to tell anyone who their true identities are, which is exactly what the gang was going to Harper's to do. They were literally gonna pull up and be like, "Yo, we pilot Mech-X4, what's up?" Harris rushes to the meetup spot, but a giant spider worm creature, I don't really know what it is. Ryan defeats the worm and saves everyone, but during the tussle, Harris eats a monster goop and he starts becoming a monster. That final plot point carries into episode 3. In it, they try to find more of the goop to reverse engineer a cure for Harris, and they find that monster's heart, but since the goop all dried up, they end up going to an active volcano filled with monster blood, which is called Primorpheus Gel. There is an active volcano filled with monster goop chilling at the top of their town, and nobody noticed that? Okay. They end up getting trapped inside the volcano, and we get our second major nostalgia moment, which is Alien.
No, come on.
Spider, who is labeled as useless earlier in the episode, ends up saving all of them, and they cure Harris. In episode 4, they crack the monster heart, which, unbeknownst to them, sets off a tracker that gives away their location to the principal, aka the monster lady. This episode actually focuses a little bit more on the principal and her henchmen. They create this Clawboon creature. Clawboon proves to be too much for the group, and they end up flying away. They have this conversation about the monsters being designed, and it would have been a hell of a lot more interesting if we hadn't literally watched a sequence of the monsters being designed 5 seconds before this. The gang uses Ryan's technopathy to get into Harper Futuristics so they can use Harper's new quantum laser to break open the monster core. Now, obviously, they are caught, and since the laser reactivated the monster heart, Clawboon gets sent after them again. There's this false fire alarm. Ryan stays back to try and pick up the heart, but he's attacked by definitely not the principal. And we get one of television's worst fight scenes ever. It ends with Ryan losing the heart in the dumbest way possible, and then Principal Gray literally picks up the ID that had his fucking face on it, and now his identity is exposed. Oh, also the tech mogul guy, Seth Harper, he starts dating Ryan and Mark's mom in one of the weirdest pickup line moments I've ever seen.
Did I hear you say that you're not dating anyone?
Are you asking me out?
Maybe.
Episode 5 takes a break from the continuing storyline. Instead, we focus on Ryan and how he starts to experience this, spicy deja vu. He ends up entering a skateboarding competition to, take his mind off things. He accidentally discovers some more cool tech inside the robot and decides to use it to cheat. But on the day of the competition, a monster attacks. He's able to make both of it work, save everybody, and make it back in time for the competition. However, he absolutely bombs.
Ready?
Principal Gray shakes his hand at the competition and places a tracker on him, and he just can't tell. She uses the tracker to figure out where they keep Mech-X4, and she also figures out that Harris and Spider are involved. Episode 6 is dumb. That's it. Ryan, Spider, and Harris go on a freshman camping trip. They almost get murdered. They blow up a bunch of phones because that's not stupid. And then they show up late and watch Mark and Mech-X4 get picked up and carried away by a fucking saber-toothed dragon thingy. That's it. It's just dumb. Episode 7, though, it's a little bit more interesting. Principal Gray reveals herself to Mark because she can't figure out how to operate Mech-X4, and he manages to escape and begins to wreak havoc on her mobile lab. The gang finds the robot, and they meet up with Mark, and Ryan masters his ability to turn on Mech-X4 without being inside of it. And then they defeat the saber dragon thing. But when Ryan gets home, he discovers Principal Gray is literally just chilling with his mom. She asks him to team up with her, since her employer, the mastermind, whose identity even she doesn't know, is trying to kill her now. In episode 8, Ryan decides to team up with Principal Gray. He brings her back to Mech-X4 despite the team's protests, and they hatch this plan to lure out her boss. She's attacked by a group of agents. Ryan and the gang help stop them. They use one of the agents' phones to figure out the boss's location. But when they arrive, Principal Gray double crosses them. However, the gang isn't as stupid as this show makes them out to be, and they double cross her double cross. Ryan uses the X weapon that Harris designed. He uses it to defeat Clawboon. However, it almost kills him. And then Principal Gray tries to escape, but it turns out into arguably the worst fight scene in TV history.
I can't control it!
She ends up hanging out of an open window that 100% wasn't there before, but now it's there. And Ryan tries to save her, but she literally falls to her death. Side note, I think it would have been more impactful if she threw herself to her death, but that would have probably been way too dark for this DisneyXD show. After the battle, Ryan starts snooping through Principal Gray's things, and he finds the files that she had on him, and in them are his adoption papers, because apparently he's adopted. I know I should really wait for the cons section to have this argument, but I feel like I can't not bring this up when we're talking about episode 8, because if this show was just a little bit more well written, I don't think we would have had this as a mid-season reveal. I think this entire arc, the kids versus Principal Gray, that entire thing could have been an entire season. I feel like the way that Principal Gray is written also just doesn't make me very sympathetic for her. When she dies, I, 1, don't actually care, and 2, don't even really get why Ryan would be all that upset when she passes away, because she clearly never liked him.
That's some bullshit.
I also think it would have been more interesting if we hadn't revealed who she was in the first episode. I also would have loved to actually see Ryan develop his power and each of the guys adjust to their roles within Mech-X4. I'd love to see how their roles in the robot affect their friendships outside of the robot. The premise of this show. On paper, the ideas behind this show are chef's kiss. A robot piloted by a bunch of teenagers that fight monsters created by an evil mastermind who's out to destroy the world. This concept has so much going for it, and I love the nostalgia trip, the references to like past important or iconic sci-fi moments.
I don't know why, but this did things to me back then.
Set design on the show, pretty damn good. At least for like the inside of the actual robot. I'm not crazy about those harness things that Ryan has to wear when he's controlling Mech-X4, but I get why they're there. The design on a lot of the other sets is pretty cool as well. We're not up to speed on some of what I'm going to mention, but we'll get to it. But like the set design for Mech-X3, the Mech-X4 fan club room was like honestly kind of cool to look at. And then that one shot of the Monster Heart missile in episode 15, I guess that's more a testament to the VFX, but it's still, the composition looks cool, okay? The mise-en-scène, it's giving. The VFX are pretty hit or miss, but when they hit,
what are you doing here?
despite the abysmal writing, which we'll dive into later, the acting isn't that bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it has its moments.
I'm real tired of this guy talking about our mom.
X-weapon that jerk?
X-weapon that jerk.
But overall, it's not terrible. Like, clearly, these are kids who can act, who were directed to act a certain way. And the cast is really good at embodying all of their characters. Like, nobody feels like they're half-assing it. The guy who plays Leo, whose name I was too lazy to look up, he really stands out playing this kind of like quirky inventor dude. And the guy who plays Seth Harper also really sticks out. I feel like he was a youth pastor. Like either in this life or in a past life. I feel like he was a youth pastor. Did anyone else get that? Or am I the only Christian kid who was allowed to watch this show? Kidding. Nathaniel Potvin is also pretty good as Ryan. I think that his intensity feels a little forced at times.
Harper!
Again, I'm blaming that more on the direction because he was likely told to deliver his lines that way. And like I said, overall, everybody 8. The second story arc is way better than the first one. And the episodes get a lot better in like quality, at least till episode 14. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Episode 9 is arguably the best episode of the season. At least it's like my favorite. This focuses almost entirely on Ryan's inner turmoil after finding out he's adopted, with an emphasis on how it'll impact his relationship with Mark. The way it develops is surprisingly decent, and they even like use Cassie Park, who is this recurring character that's like a digital journalist or whatever. She's not really that important, but they utilize like her interview footage as a way to introduce the Harper Grant as well as like further the episode's story. This episode also shows like Harper a little bit more and his dynamic or like growing relationship with at least Ryan, although I know he does have like a growing relationship with Mark throughout the last half of this series as well. It ends with Ryan confronting his mom about the fact he's adopted, and she gives him a box full of the things that he was like found with. It includes a note that they realize was written by Leo. If the majority of the episodes were a little bit more like this, the show would have probably been better, because episodes like this that kind of humanize the characters and focus more on their relationships.
I liked being on a team with you, and every time I thought about that, my powers, they got all weird. And if we're not even brothers, we're not...
Whoa, dude, stop. First of all, we're brothers. We're family.
I feel like it helps us understand who we're rooting for, and it makes the show just a lot more interesting as a whole. Episode 10 is another genuinely interesting episode of the show. Basically, they go to Leo's last address and they find an earlier version of Mech-X4 called Mech-X3 that's piloted by an AI modeled after Leo. Now, after the AI refuses to give Ryan Leo's classified files, they try to steal them, but Mech-X4 sets these, like, drones? Question mark? Ryan's able to talk him down, and Mech-X4 decides to use the chip Leo implanted in his brain to find his location. It's successful, but the AI dies as a result. The only problem is he's kind of at the bottom of the ocean. Side note, there's a subplot about Mark struggling with the revelation that Ryan is adopted, which is a nice addition, although it's not really fleshed out very well. And there's another subplot that follows Leo and his attempt to escape from prison, which also ends with the reveal that he is underwater. And I honestly like the way that it cuts between the main story and Leo's subplot, and how they both come to like the same conclusion at the end. Now, I hate episode 13, but it's mainly because the boys are doing dumb shit again. It bounces from Harris presenting his invention for the Harper Grant, and then Ryan and Spider discovering Mech-X4 fan club. In the Harris plot, Harris and another young scientist named Veracity have this like ongoing feud. However, their experiments start to react off of each other, which results in a black hole that could destroy the entire school. But Harris calls Ryan to bring Mech-X4 to take care of it, and the whole problem is like eradicated pretty quickly. As for Spider and Ryan, they discover a Mech-X4 fan club, and because they don't know when to shut up, they start talking about the fact that they're pilots of Mech-X4, and Cassie overhears them. Meanwhile, Dane, who is Mark's friend, who, again, is not important, Dane and the other jocks kick the Mech-X4 fan club out, so Ryan and Spider use Mech-X4 to scare the shit out of Dane and get the club room back for their group. Only problem is, Cassie figures out it's them. When Harris calls Mech-X4 to get rid of the black hole, Ryan uses his ability to control the robot from outside of it to, basically like prove to Cassie he's not the pilot. And both Harris and Veracity win the Harper Grant. And we get this actually fairly well-developed joke.
Catch you around the lab, Sparky.
Oh, just kiss already.
Inappropriate.
In episode 12, while Harris is working at Harper Futuristics, he develops some pretty cool new tech, which gives Mech-X4 a submarine mode, and has the team wear bracelets with various functions like invisibility, force fields, and a Star Wars style calling system. Ryan decides that it's time to dive down to Leo's underwater prison to try and rescue him. Since there's no GPS on the robot, Harris guides them from his office at Harper's, but because of the mission's dangerous nature, Ryan and Mark get into a fight about if they should give up or not, and they accidentally hit one of the mines that's floating underwater. And as they slip deeper into the depths of the ocean towards their inevitable deaths, Ryan literally dips on all of them to save Leo. Luckily, he's successful and they make it to the surface. However, during the rescue mission, Ryan hears the voice of the mastermind and he uses his technopathy to find the audio source. He discovers that the mastermind behind all of this is, drum roll,
Harper Futuristic CEO Seth Harper, because we didn't all see that coming.
I feel like this reveal would have been more impactful at the end of season 2, but what do I know? I'm just an idiot with a Yeti microphone. Episode 13 takes some heavy inspiration from Inception, and I love it. I said earlier that episode 9 is my favorite episode, but if I'm being real with you, episode 13 is 100% my favorite episode. Now that Leo is on Mech-X4, he explains that to destroy Harper's plan for world domination, they need to destroy the source of the Primorpheus gel. In order to find out where that is, Harris and Leo build a neurosplicer that will take Ryan into Harper's mind. However, he could get serious brain damage if he stays in for too long, so he has this little remote that he can use to like jump out. And when Ryan makes the jump into Harper's mind, we see like just a little bit more of Harper and Leo's backstory. Basically, they were like college roommates. Harper ended up getting kicked out of their school.
Why am I here?
Because there is something of great value under the school. I need you to protect it.
I'm looking for this. Not a hint of pollution. You know why?
Because I had to wipe the world clean.
I know who the pilots are. And I know what they're gonna do next.
Episode 14 is when the show takes a nosedive back into "this is the bane of my existence" territory. Leo tells Ryan about his birth parents who were part of his experiments to create a technopath. Now, although the actual experiments were unsuccessful, they had Ryan, and when Harper went after them, they went into hiding and gave Ryan to Leo, who put him up for adoption. Ryan vows to end Harper for destroying his family, but I just want to point out that the whole, like, I experimented on people conversation is, like, fairly lighthearted, and Leo is, like, portrayed as this quirky inventor throughout the series, but, like, just think about the implications of the "I experimented on people" thing. Like, sure, everybody volunteered. It's still weird. It's still kind of messed up. Just saying. The gang tries to destroy the Promorpheus gel, which was under the school. However, they're attacked by a swarm of Harper-controlled invisible wasps.
Invisible wasp! Worse! Worse!
They accidentally bomb the school because Spider is a fucking dumbass, and now they're public enemy number one. Harper ends up basically holding their mom hostage, although she doesn't know that yet. And so Mark and Ryan decide to attack Harper Futuristics, because that's not the stupidest plan ever. And the military shows up because, duh, they're public enemy number one. They end up having to dip again. 'Cause duh. Episode 15 is part 1 of the show's 2-part finale. Now, the gang manages to hide from the military, so Harris and Mark head to Harper Futuristics to save their mom. Leo arrives to do some repairs, and Ryan and Spider discover a malfunctioning missile lodged inside the robot. They're able to get it out in time, but the blast knocks out the robot's power, and with the military sending a new fleet of missiles towards them, Ryan has to use his technopathy to stop them while Leo and Spider fix Mech-X4's core. Leo risks his life and fixes the core, saving them but almost getting himself killed. Meanwhile, Mark and Harris get caught by Harper's goons while they're trying to, rescue Mark and Ryan's mom. But Harris eats some of the Primorpheus gel and they're able to escape with her. The episode ends with them having like 2 main goals. 1, stop the giant Godzilla-esque monster that started terrorizing the city, because that happened at the end of the episode. And 2, keeping Harper's giant monster heart that's strapped to a missile from launching into the pool of fucking gel that's just sitting where their school used to be. Now, this becomes infinitely more difficult when they realize that Harper is inside the Godzilla-esque monster thing. I know I said the set design was good. I never said it was great, and I never said anything about this.
Hello, guys!
This episode actually has some interesting themes throughout it. We get to see Ryan finally understand the gravity of the situation that they're in, and he starts to question if he's really like good enough to essentially save the world, which is an aspect of all this that this show hadn't really dived into before. And it's also like a really interesting conversation and makes for some cringe dialogue that is also like kind of sweet.
But right after we end this new monster, it's threatening innocent people right now. Then we'll kick Harper's butt from here to the moon. Sound good? Yeah!
Also, Mark and Harris have a pretty good dynamic throughout this episode, and it made me realize a couple different things. One, they could have written Harris to be a girl, and it would have changed nothing in this show. And two, if Raymond Cham wasn't so visibly older than Cameron Lucas, someone would have shipped this. And it could have been a potentially interesting, like, romantic dynamic to explore, which makes me wonder if Harris was originally written to be a girl and then they changed it when they, like, cast Cameron, or they just changed it somewhere along and then decided not to take out this one scene that kind of references that.
Look, you're great, right? In the lab, but out in the field, not so much. And I can't protect you and save my mom at the same time.
Wait, so I'm some kind of professional damsel in distress?
Yeah, but a dude version.
He's crazy. But maybe not the worst guy to go into a fight with.
Side note, any of these characters could have been a girl. The only 3 female characters to show up are Veracity, their mom, and Cassie. Cassie is insufferable. Veracity is also made out to be insufferable, and their mom is not even important. Episode 16 is our not so epic finale. Again, it's characterized by our main characters being fucking stupid. They start fighting the Harper Godzilla thing, and he gives them the choice to either hand over their mom or he'll like hurt them and he'll get their mom anyway. So it's not really much of a choice, is it? Right afterwards, she wakes up, but she's been like infected by Harper's like ooze thing. She wakes up and dips from the robot to join Harper. Leo uses an overwrite to save them before Harper can destroy Mech-X4, and the gang ends up splitting up again, with Mark and Spider attempting to slow Harper down while Ryan tries to stop the monster heart from launching towards their school's ooze pit. Harper eventually catches up though, and Ryan tries to take the remote from him, but it ends up in the hands of his mom. Despite her brainwashing, she punches Harper, and he manages to get the remote anyway though, so the missile is launched. The gang hops back into Mech-X4 and runs, not flies, runs. And they can fly. We've seen them do it on multiple occasions, but no, this one time when it would be imperative to move quickly, no, we gotta run through Bay City. They use the grappling grip, which is one of the dumbest names for a stupid thing on this stupid robot. Anyway, they use the grappling grip to grab the missile out of the sky and throw it right into Harper. Harper is dead, presumably. Their mom remembers nothing, and the day is saved. All the boys have questions, naturally, but one thing that they do know is that they'll always be there to protect Bay City. Now, this episode is objectively trash. However, it is a good ending for the first season, so I guess it's okay. For the most part, the show's editing is like fairly decent. It does that conventional thing. It's seamless. We're knit into the story through it, all that. However, there are some moments that I'm just like, no. For example, the editing on this particular sequence in episode 10, which is an otherwise fine episode, like I said, I liked it.
If you want to impress Seth Harper, you have to do something daring. Get in touch with your inner spider. Ignore that nerdy voice in your head telling you to follow the rules.
I love that voice. Sounds like Morgan Freeman.
It's so fast-paced, it's distracting. And we see it from so many different angles that make no sense. For context, if you're not that big on like film, language, or technique, the faster that you cut, the more tension a sequence will have, because the audience is trying to focus on like what is the next thing the screen will show us, right? Now, if you're editing a conversation, which is what's happening in this sequence, you need something that's a little bit slower, that takes the audience's focus away from the actual editing and places it on the performances. Another strange thing that keeps showing up is these bar things that appear a lot, especially in the second half of the season. I understand that this was probably a decision to pull on the nostalgia strings by like making a callback to comic books, which makes sense given, you know, the inspiration for this show. However, I just don't like the way it looks.
Will you be a part of it?
Generally, the cinematography is like fairly decent throughout the series. However, I do have beef with the way that they shoot action sequences. The establishing shot of the robot fighting the monsters is pretty normal. I generally like these parts of the action sequences, but the shots inside the robot,
I'm getting real tired of this guy talking about our mom.
Rest in peace, Sigmund Freud, man. You would have loved TikTok. So much good research could have been conducted, but, you know, wasn't your time. I get you, man. Rest in peace. We love you.
Mech execute myself, bitch. The reaction shots of Raymond Cham specifically, like, just take me the fuck out. The overuse of this, like, steady cam and canted frames, it's just so painful. Aside from all this, the cinematography is like more just standard than it is like necessarily bad. I do love a couple things that this show does. The way that they shoot everyone getting stepped on. Iconic. I do like that. That one like shot transition from episode 13 in the principal's office. There are some good points middled in with the bad stuff.
Kid, hold on! No!
Buckle in, bitch boys, we're gonna be here for a while. The core, the monster's heart, if you will, of this show's problems is 100% the writing, because it's so bad that it eclipses every decent thing about this show. Let's break this into exhibits, shall we?
Oh, hey, Mark.
The dialogue is bad. It's only slightly worse than these shows like normally are. However, because other aspects are bad, it makes this feel even worse.
Maybe you and your brother are like this, but just now you're more like this.
Get away from my mom and give me the trigger, or else I'll give you a haircut from the inside out.
Ooh, that's right. Who's bad? This is our house.
They put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing.
Drop the new monster core into the Primorphous gel.
The show has a problem of telling and showing. So instead of just like letting us figure it out, the writers think we're stupid and need it spelled out for us. Which is fair, because this is a kids show. However, it's just a little excessive at times. You know, how the monsters are made, that they're designed. It was revealed in episode 4.
Take the core and get it to the checkpoint. Make sure you weren't followed.
I would have loved to see that sequence at the end of that episode, after the guys had that conversation, just as like a little confirmation, like, oh, they're on the right track. The writing makes the characters look stupid as fuck. In episode 4, Ryan fights a mystery assassin while trying to leave with the monster heart. And not only does he leave the heart behind, he leaves behind the ID with his face on it.
Episode 5, Ryan gets a tracker placed on him without even realizing it. And then episode 6, the butcher concept, stupid. Exploding phones,
stupid. The writing does chill out for like a minute and it's pretty solid until episode 11, where Spider and Ryan again prove themselves to be complete morons and literally expose themselves to Cassie. In episode 14, Spider shoots missiles at a pack of invisible wasps controlled by Harper and blows the school up. And episode 16 has to be one of the worst finales in TV show history, simply because all of it could have been ended in 5 seconds if Ryan had just shot Harper in the fucking chest with those drones.
The next monster I make will tear that robot apart.
This show refuses to play the long game. Not only does it reveal every bamboozle as soon as possible, but the writing overall just feels so rushed. The fact that we have a finale-deserving plot point, the reveal, betrayal, and death of Principal Gray, during episode 8 of a 16-episode show is dumb. I understand that they were probably worried the show wouldn't have been picked up for a season 2. However, if they had played the long game instead of rushing through the story, the show probably would have had a much larger audience. And I get that this show probably didn't get the budget to play the long game, but if they had gone for a mini-series format, we'd get like 8 episodes a season, and they'd be like well developed, really well done VFX, because they would have the budget to just focus in on those 8 episodes. This show had such incredible potential, and it is frustrating to see it wasted by this like subpar writing. Something that I forgot to mention while I was filming the video is that this show has so much ADR in it. Generally, the sound design is okay, but the sheer amount of ADR in this show is like borderline astounding. And for the most part, it's like barely noticeable, but the more I spent time editing this video and the more time I spent like watching the show, I realized how many of them have that switch in audio quality.
Stay down, dingus. I didn't know you could control the robot from outside.
Yeah, neither did I. I wish I knew what it all means.
And it takes me out every time. Like, I'm... But then again, everything about this show takes me out. Overall, the TV show is fun, but stupid, well done, but like kinda terrible, and like charming, but ultimately disappointing. I think the biggest takeaway I have from this is that this show really did have so much potential. The storyline, the CGI, which was wonky at times, but otherwise pretty impressive. The cast, it was all ripe with the potential for an iconic sci-fi kids series. But the writing really just had to go and ruin it for everybody. Overall, I would say the show does have like good points. I think if you're young, you will see past a lot of the issues with the writing and all of the other stuff and just enjoy the story. Apparently there is like quite a fandom surrounding season 2. Like when you go online, you will find lots of stuff pertaining to season 2 but not season 1. So I'm gonna assume season 2 like brings it back and is a lot better. I don't know. I might watch season 2, I might not. Either way, if you're interested, it is on Disney+. I just want to say that even though I have said a lot of negative things about this show, and even though I do have a lot of problems with it, I actually really like this show. There's so much potential to like bring this show back. I don't know if any of the people who worked on it would be interested in doing that, but I think that there definitely is like a fandom. I think that this show is so groundbreaking in the sense that Disney Channel and DisneyXD was dominated by sitcoms during this era, and Steve Marmel and the team behind Mech-X4 did something kind of groundbreaking for children's content. I think that it's really interesting to see how this show isn't really one that comes up when we talk about DisneyXD shows, even though Disney has like 100% gone in this direction. I know a fairly popular show right now is Secrets of Sulphur Springs, and that's another like binge-able show. So it's interesting to see how like with the rise of the streaming service, shows like this are just given a lot more attention.
And it's also interesting to think about the possibilities of if this show had been produced now and not back then, what would be different. I may have said a lot of negative things about the show and pointed at a lot of its lacking aspects, but at the end of the day, I do actually really like it, and I wish that, you know, we had more opportunities to see it grow into something better. And I do appreciate the team behind it for creating something like this in an era where this was like not very common. But yeah, I think I've kept you for far too long. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you whenever I see you next.
Why didn't he just like use the like laser movies to explode the trigger?
Okay, this whole family moment, it's adorable, but you know what? I'm bored and I want it over. Ryan, you're not gonna hurt your mom.
I would. That was pretty dope, though. That shot was pretty dope.
Guys, we won't have a lot of time before that giant monster heart rocket plunges into the ooze.
Then we need to get there first.
Well, then quit why don't you fly there? And it's so bad. Oh no! You guys are just, why can't you fly? Why can't you fly? Yeah, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do that? From the beginning! I hate the steady cam.
Guys, it's not going to stop him!
Guys, we need to stop him! I'm an asshole.
Grappling grip! Grappling grip!
We get it, it's a grappling hook that comes out of your fucking hand. That wasn't bad. That part wasn't bad. What? Oh, I hated that. That couldn't have been more ugly to look at. And I like Nathaniel Podvin's face. Are you kidding me? Will I watch season 2 for my own personal torture? Maybe. Will I hate every second of it? Probably.